One of my favorite things is when religious people claim that God supports what they do. And I don't mean broadly God supports them. I mean God supports their what they're doing in sports or what they're doing in politics. It's that megalomaniacal moment where a candidate says God is playing politics or God is watching sports and he has picked you. And Republican candidate Ben Carson is now playing that game. He was on this ludicrous show, Daystar's Marcus and Joni. And he said, yeah, God opened the door for me to enter the presidential race. I was going to allow God to either open that door or shut it in my face. And God opened the door and he was behind me. Here's Ben Carson. See if you can follow the logic of this, if it doesn't make you gag and throw up a little bit in your mouth.
And I bought an organ. I was going to learn how to play the organ and read all those books you never read and see all those movies and not have to set the alarm clock. But, sometimes the Lord has a plan that's different for us. And, after the prayer breakfast, a lot of people started clamoring for me to run for president, which I thought was kind of a ridiculous thing. And I said, that'll all die down, so just ignore it. But it never did. And it just kept building. And pretty soon I was getting a box every week with 5,000 petitions in it. Wow. Pretty soon I had a whole room full of these boxes. And people saying, you have to do this, you have to do that for us. And, the draft movement built, and I finally said, Lord, I don't particularly want to do this. This is not on my bucket list, but if you want me to do it, you open the doors and I'll walk through them. And if you close the doors, I'll sit down. And the doors began flying open, much to the consternation of all the professional class and all the pundits who said, it's impossible. You can't possibly put together a national organization.
Ben Carson, as he usually does, Lewis, seeming only about half awake during this interview. The Lord has a plan for Ben Carson, and Ben Carson knows it, and it's for him to run for president. God is very involved in the minutia of American politics, isn't he?
Yep, God wanted Palin to run. God wanted Michelle Bachmann to run. God wanted all of these people to run, and God supported them. But for some reason, God did not let them win.
Right.
I wonder what's going on with that. And the funny thing is, David, is that God is behind multiple candidates in the same election.
Well, according to them.
Yes. But, someone is lying. Dave, I think it's like Highlander. There can be only one, God
lying, or they can't really tell when God is talking to them. And Ben Carson telling the story that he told God he didn't want to run, but God told Ben that he does want him to run. Replace the word God with anything else. How would that not be mental illness? Listen, I get signals, right, from outer space aliens, and I told them I don't want them to run, but they told me that they do want me to run. Why is that not acceptable, but saying this is acceptable, at least to a lot of Americans?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe Ben Carson is starting to suffer from schizophrenia or something similar because if God is behind one candidate, Dave, it's only going to be one candidate.
Ben Carson says God is behind him. If I were God and I found myself behind Ben Carson, it would be because I was hiding behind him, hoping that no one sees me and associates me with Ben Carson, not because I want him to be president of the United States.
Hey, God created Ben Carson, Dave. he put him here for a reason.
All right, that is half of or more of the Republican field has mentioned that God was a factor in them running, and so we have to assume either they are lying about God talking to them and saying or maybe God really does want a crazy showdown of 17 Republican candidates, and he told all of them to run.
Maybe God is just behind the media outlets and the news networks and wants ratings to go up.
God owns shares of News Corp. So he just really wants all these guys in there because it's going to make for good TV. Let me remind you, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. We have a Reddit discussion forum at davidpakman.com/Reddit. That's REDDIT. I know Lewis likes that. And we are on Twitter, Lewis. You are on Twitter at Lewis Motamedi, LOUISMOTAMEDI. I have to be spelling it on a regular basis. And I am on Twitter at DPakman. That's DPAKMAN. We'll take a break. I finally have a much requested documentary recommendation coming up.